The doctor's hand was still resting on my arm when he whispered the words that turned my blood to ice. "Ma'am, you're in danger. Do not go home tonight. Call the authorities. Please." For a moment, I couldn't breathe, only stared through the glass wall of the exam room at the girl in the wheelchair, my daughter, my Emily. 6 years of sleepless nights, aching arms, sacrificed dreams, all for her. And now this stranger was telling me I was in danger. For my own child, I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, my legs went weak. Because in his eyes, I did not see doubt. I saw fear. For 6 long years, my entire world had fit inside a narrow hallway, a tiny bathroom with metal grab bars, and the quiet, rhythmic squeak of 2 wheelchair wheels rolling across worn wood floors. Every morning at exactly 5:30 a.m., my eyes would open, not because of an alarm clock, but because of habit. A mother never forgets what time her child needs her, even when that child is 25 years old, even when she hasn't walked since she was 19. "Emily," I would call softly, my voice half trapped in my throat before I even opened her bedroom door. "Sweetheart, I'm coming in." Sometimes she would already be awake, staring at the ceiling, her pale face illuminated by the faint light creeping through floral curtains. Other times, I would find her exactly as I had left her the night before, her long brown hair tangled across the pillow, her hands folded politely across her stomach as if she had never once moved. "You didn't sleep again, did you?" I'd whisper. I tried, Mama, she would respond in that tired, gentle voice that always cut straight through me. But the dreams came back. The dreams. She never told me much about them, just that in them she was running through fields, along beaches, through places she barely remembered. Then she'd wake up, look down at her useless legs, and reality would crash in all over again. That was the day my routine would begin. I would help her sit up slowly, supporting her back so the room wouldn't spin. Then I'd slide my arms beneath hers, careful, always careful, and lift her into the chair. Even after all these years, I never got used to how light she felt. My beautiful, athletic, laughing daughter had once weighed nearly 30 pounds more. Now her frame was fragile, like a memory fading away. "You're stronger today," I'd lie smiling. "I can feel it." She would smile back, trying to believe me. We both pretended. After that came the bathroom routine, the shower chair, the special soap the physical therapist recommended, the careful washing of legs that never responded, feet that never flinched at hot or cold. I remembered the first year after her accident, I would cry silently while washing her my tears, blending with the falling water so she wouldn't see them. Over time, I learned to hold them back. Mothers do that. We swallow so much pain it becomes normal. "I'm sorry you have to do all this for me," she murmured that morning as I dried her legs with a soft towel. "Don't ever apologize for needing your mother," I snapped more sharply than I intended. My voice softened as I tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. That's my job, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. That part was true. What I didn't tell her was what it had cost me. I had sold my small car the first year after her accident to cover medical bills. I quit my part-time job at the library because Emily couldn't be left alone for long stretches. I canceled vacations I'd once dreamed about. I stopped meeting friends for coffee, stopped going to church, regularly stopped having a world outside of these walls. My home had become a hospital room, and I had become a nurse, a therapist, a cook, a cleaner, and a warden to hope all at once. Still, I never complained. Because 6 years ago, when the police officer stood on my front porch explaining the car accident, all I had heard was, "Your daughter is alive." And that was enough. "I made oatmeal today the way you like it," I told her as I rolled her into the kitchen, "with cinnamon and a little brown sugar." "You still remember how I like it best," she said, and her lips curled upward in that familiar crooked smile that once melted every boy in high school. "Of course I do. A mother never forgets such important things." She watched me quietly as I prepared our simple breakfast. Her eyes followed every movement of mine, the way I stirred the pot, the way my hands trembled slightly. "Mama," she started, then stopped. What is it, sweetheart? You ever wish this had happened to somebody else? The question hit me like a punch. No, I answered without hesitation. Never. I'd take it from you if I could, every single day. She looked away, almost ashamed of the thought. I just hate being a burden. You are not a burden, I said, placing the bowl gently in her lap. You are my daughter, and you are the reason I keep breathing. We ate in silence most mornings, the only sound the spoon tapping against ceramic. The routine had become sacred, safe, familiar. It was the only world I knew now. On the wall hung an old framed photo of us at the lake when she was 16. She was standing on a rock, arms outstretched, hair wild in the wind. I remembered that day clearly. The water had been cold. We had laughed until my stomach hurt. That same girl was now sitting in front of me, unable to lift her own legs. I never imagined a future without that chair in it. And yet that morning, as I helped her put on her jacket for her routine checkup, as I fastened the tiny buttons of her blouse and reached for the wheelchair handles, I would soon hear the words that would change everything I thought I knew. You're in danger. Not from a stranger, not from the world, but from the life I had built around my own child. The drive to the clinic was exactly the same as it had been every month for 6 years. I followed the same cracked road, past the same fading grocery store sign, stopped at the same red light that flickered just a second too long. Emily sat beside me in the passenger seat, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her gaze distant as she watched the world pass by through the half-open window. Yet something in the air felt different. Not loud, not dramatic, just wrong in the quietest way. Are you cold, sweetheart? I asked, glancing at her. No, Mama. I'm fine, she replied. Her voice was soft, but there was a tightness in it, a thin thread of tension I hadn't noticed before. For the past 6 years, I had learned to read every nuance of her voice. I knew the difference between pain and tiredness, between hunger and nausea, between fear and embarrassment. This was none of those. It was something else entirely. When we arrived at the clinic, the waiting room looked just as it always had, bland, sterile, yet somehow familiar enough to feel almost comforting. The humming, fluorescent lights, the outdated magazines on the table, the faint smell of disinfectant and old coffee. But when I approached the front desk, I noticed something unusual. Good morning, the young receptionist said. Name? Emily Carter, monthly appointment with Dr. Hargrove at 9:30. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Her smile faltered just slightly. There seems to be a schedule change today, she said carefully. Dr. Hargrove won't be available. You'll be seeing Dr. Raymond. That alone unsettled me. In 6 years, we had never seen another doctor. Not once. Oh, I said. Is Dr. Hargrove sick? I'm not sure, ma'am. He had to step away suddenly. Emily's jaw tightened for just a moment. It was so quick I might have missed it had I not been watching her so closely. That's fine, I answered, trying to sound normal. Thank you. As I rolled her toward the seating area, my eyes drifted to the far corner, where an elderly woman sat clutching her purse, tightly. She gave me a slow, sympathetic look, the kind of look a stranger gives when they know something you don't. I shoved the thought away. You are just nervous, I told myself. That's all this is. But the strange sensation only grew stronger the longer we waited. Emily barely spoke. She didn't pick up a magazine like she usually did. She didn't scroll on her phone. Instead, she stared at the floor and gently bounced her fingers against the armrest over and over again. Sweetheart, I whispered, leaning closer. Is there something you're not telling me? Her head lifted quickly, too quickly. No, she replied. I'm just tired today. Another lie. I couldn't explain why, but a memory flashed through my mind, a moment from just 3 nights earlier. I had woken up thirsty around midnight and padded quietly down the hallway to the kitchen. As I passed Emily's bedroom, I had heard a faint rustling sound coming from inside. I paused, wondering if she needed help. When I pushed the door open a few inches, the noise had stopped. She was lying perfectly still in her bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought I heard something, I whispered. Just shifting around, she replied. Nothing about it had made sense. How could she be shifting around on her own? She hadn't moved in years. But I had dismissed it as sleep confusion, as imagination playing tricks on me. Now sitting in that waiting room, the memory sent a cold ripple down my spine. A quiet click echoed across the room. Emily Carter. The man standing in the doorway wasn't Dr. Hargrove. I knew that immediately. He was taller, broader. Somewhere in his late 50s, maybe. His hair was streaked with silver, not completely gray. His eyes, though, they were intense in a way that almost frightened me. Sharp, observant. They didn't drift past us like most doctors' eyes did. They locked onto mine as if we had already met. "Good morning," he said politely. "I'm Dr. Raymond. Please come in." As I pushed the wheelchair inside the unfamiliar examination room, my skin prickled all over. The walls were bare. No cheesy motivational posters, no childlike artwork, only sterile white and the dull shine of metal cabinets. Emily breathed shallowly. "Have a seat, Miss Carter," he said calmly, gesturing to a chair. "And you can stay right there, Emily." Something about how he said her name unsettled me. Not warm, not friendly. He began by reviewing her chart on the screen. "She's been under Dr. Hargrove's care for 6 years, he murmured. "Severe spinal damage, limited mobility, dependent care, monthly injections for nerve pain, muscle relaxers daily." His brow furrowed. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing yet," he replied evenly, "just noticing a few irregularities." My heart stuttered. What kind of irregularities? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out a small rubber hammer and moved closer to Emily's legs. "Emily, I'm going to test a few reflexes, all right?" She nodded slowly. He tapped gently below her kneecap. Nothing happened. He tried again. Then a third time, slightly harder. This time, her foot jerked. A tiny movement, barely noticeable. But I saw it. E-A-S-A-W-I-T. Emily's eyes widened for a split second. "Did you just feel that?" I whispered excitedly. "No," she said too quickly. "It's just a twitch. It's nothing." But the doctor's expression changed. Not confusion. Concern. He repeated the test on her other leg. Again, the same subtle reaction. He stepped back, folded his arms, and studied her more closely now, as if seeing her for the very first time. "Emily," he said gentler this time, "when was the last time you felt anything in your legs?" She swallowed. I don't remember." His gaze flicked up to me. "Ms. Carter, I'd like to speak with you in private for a moment." "Of course, doctor. Is everything all right?" "Yes," he said, "for now." He moved toward the door. As I stood, I noticed Emily gripping the sides of her wheelchair so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. The moment the door shut behind us, he lowered his voice. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "I need you to keep your composure. What I'm about to say may sound extreme, but it's very important." A chill crept up my spine. "There are serious inconsistencies in your daughter's condition and in her medical records, things that simply do not align with a true, complete spinal paralysis." I stared at him speechless. "That's not possible," I whispered. "I've cared for her for 6 years." "I know, and that's exactly why I am concerned for you." He stepped closer, eyes dark and serious. "Ma'am, you are in danger." My breath froze in my chest. "What did you say?" "Do not go home tonight. Do not tell your daughter. Do not call anyone from your house phone. Leave. Go somewhere safe. And as soon as you have privacy..." His voice dropped to almost nothing. "Call the authorities." The world tilted violently. Danger. From who? From who? I glanced back through the small window into the room, at the girl I had cared for, cleaned, bathed, held at night when she cried. My daughter. And for the first time in 6 years, I did not recognize her face. For a few endless seconds after Dr. Raymond spoke those words, the world around me simply disappeared. No sound from the hallway, no humming from the air conditioner, no ticking of the clock on the wall. Just the echo of his warning ringing inside my skull. You are in danger. From who I finally managed to whisper. My lips felt numb. My daughter. That's impossible. I have taken care of her for 6 years. She is the victim here. I understand why you'd think that he said, holding my gaze steadily. And I am not accusing her of anything, not yet. But I am telling you something is very wrong. And until we know exactly what it is, I cannot allow you to return home without protection. My heart pounded against my ribs like it was trying to escape. What inconsistencies I demanded, struggling to keep my voice down. What are you seeing that I'm not? He hesitated for just a moment as though carefully choosing each word. There are gaps in the medical records, missing imaging, reports that don't match the actual scans. And compared to what her records say, Emily is showing reflex responses that should not be present at all. She twitched, I murmured, half in disbelief, half in hope. I saw it. That was not a simple twitch, he replied. It was a reflex, and it was purposeful whether she's aware of it or not. A strange, desperate thought flared in me. Are you saying she's getting better? I am saying I don't believe she was ever as severely injured as we were led to believe. His voice lowered. And that scares me, Mrs. Carter, because someone has been lying either to her, to you, or to both of you. A cold, sharp fear slid down my spine. Who would do something like that, I asked. And why? Those are the exact questions the authorities need to answer as soon as possible, he said. But before we go any further, I need to know something important. His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. Has anyone else been involved in Emily's care outside of Dr. Hargrove and yourself? I thought immediately of Daniel, Emily's boyfriend, the only one who had stuck around after the accident, the one who always appeared at just the right time, the one who brought groceries, handled her phone, helped with paperwork I didn't understand. He's just trying to help, she had always said. Her boyfriend, I murmured. Daniel, he comes by often. Does he have access to your house when you are gone? Yes, I admitted. Emily gave him a copy of the key last year. Dr. Raymond's jaw tightened. And does he handle any insurance documents, mail bank statements? Yes, my stomach twisted violently. He said he was just organizing things for us. That concerns me deeply, he said quietly. I need you to understand that the people closest to you are often the ones who can cause the most harm. The words were like knives. What do we do now? I whispered. You act normal, he replied without hesitation. Wheel your daughter out. Don't look at her differently. Don't say a word that would alarm her. Pretend everything is fine. Then leave this building. Do not return home. Go somewhere safe. Somewhere she would never suspect. And then my voice shook. And then you call the police. I will provide them with everything I've just shown you. A sharp knock struck the door before I could respond. She's asking for you, a nurse said through the crack. Are you all right, ma'am? Yes, I replied quickly. We're coming. Dr. Raymond stepped back, composed once more, as if he had never uttered a word of warning. But his eyes told me everything. Get out, now. When I re-entered the examination room, Emily was staring straight at me, searching my face. Did something happen? She asked quietly. You look pale, Mama. No, I whispered, forcing a smile that burned my cheeks. Just a minor insurance question. Everything's fine. For the first time in 6 years, that was a lie. I placed my hands on the familiar handles of her chair. My palms felt slippery with sweat. As we rolled down the hallway, I became aware of every movement, every reflection in the glass walls, every step of every stranger around us. Was someone following us? Was Daniel waiting somewhere? Was the lie already surrounding me? Emily tilted her head. You're acting strange, she said. Are you sure you're okay? Yes, I lied again. But this time, the lie almost choked me. When we reached the front desk, the receptionist looked up. Everything went well. Very well, I answered stiffly. She slid a paper toward me. You'll receive a call soon about rescheduling with Dr. Hargrove. That won't be necessary, I replied, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice. I pushed the wheelchair through the glass doors and into the parking lot. The autumn air hit my face cold and harsh. A sudden sense of being watched crawled across the back of my neck. Emily leaned forward slightly in her chair, lowering her voice just enough that only I could hear her. "Mama." "Yes, sweetheart." You went white in that room. I could feel her eyes burning into the side of my face. "What did the doctor really say to you?" I swallowed. "Nothing you need to worry about." There was a moment of complete stillness between us. Then she nodded, smiling softly, the same smile she had given me hundreds of times over the years. "Okay, Mama, I trust you." Those 5 words cut deeper than anything else she could have said. As I opened the trunk to place the wheelchair inside, a car door slammed shut on the other side of the lot. I turned sharply. Across the pavement stood Daniel, hands stuffed into his jacket pockets, his eyes fixed on me with an unreadable expression. "Hey," he called casually. "I was just about to text you. How did the appointment go?" A chill ran from the base of my skull down to the soles of my feet. "Fine," I lied again. My voice nearly broke. "Everything is exactly the same." His gaze slid to Emily, then back to me. "Good," he said with a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, because it would be terrible if something suddenly changed. Behind me, Emily said nothing, but I felt her presence more than ever before. That was the moment. The moment I realized that the danger Dr. Raymond had warned me about might not be coming. It might already be standing right in front of me. The ride home from the clinic felt longer than any drive I had taken in my entire life. Each stoplight seemed to linger. Each passing car looked suspicious. Every glance in the rearview mirror made my heart hammer harder. Daniel followed us for a few blocks before turning off, but his presence clung to me like a shadow long after he disappeared from sight. Emily sat strangely silent beside me. Too silent. No humming to the radio, no idle comments about the sky, the trees, the neighbors we passed. Instead, she watched me, studied me. "Mama," she said softly after a while. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied, keeping my eyes on the road. My hands were clenched so tightly around the steering wheel that my knuckles ached. "You're holding your breath." I released a slow, shaky exhale as if I didn't even realize I had been doing it. "I'm just tired, that's all." "Dr. Raymond worried you," she pressed gently. "No more than usual," I lied again. We didn't speak for the rest of the drive. When we pulled into the driveway, my eyes immediately scanned the windows of our house. Everything looked exactly the same as it always had, and yet it felt different, unfamiliar, dangerous. Daniel might stop by, Emily mentioned too casually. He said he would check if we needed groceries. "That won't be necessary," I responded quickly, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "We have plenty of food." Her lips pressed into a thin line for the blink of an eye before returning to a soft, patient smile. "Oh, okay. He just worries about us, you know." That word. Us. A knot tightened in my stomach. I unloaded the wheelchair from the trunk and pushed it up the small ramp we had built years ago. As I rolled her through the door that I had passed through thousands of times, an eerie realization crawled over me. For 6 years, I had never imagined my own home as a place of danger. Now I felt like I had walked straight into the lion's den. Inside, everything was perfectly clean, too clean. The dishes were already washed. The floor had recently been swept. The small picture frame by the living room window had been moved slightly to the left. "I cleaned up this morning while you were making breakfast," Emily said. "I used the reacher stick to grab the broom." That should have been impossible. A shut-in wheelchair couldn't sweep the kitchen. Not like that. Not without standing. My heart pounded so ferociously I feared she could hear it. "That was kind of you," I managed. She watched me carefully as I positioned her chair in front of the living room table. "You don't look proud." "I'm just surprised," I replied. "You really didn't have to do that." "I'm trying to be more useful, Mama," she said quietly. "Don't you want that?" Something in her voice cracked open a deep ache in me. Of course I wanted that, more than anything in the world. But Dr. Raymond's words echoed in my mind. Someone has been lying. And now everything around me confirmed that truth. "I'm going to lie down for a while," I said, feigning exhaustion. The appointment drained me more than I realized. "I'll be fine out here," she answered. "Go rest." I walked toward my bedroom, but once the door clicked shut behind me, I didn't lie down. Instead, I pressed my ear gently to the wood, listening. Silence. Only the slow tick of the living room clock. Carefully, quietly, I crept to my closet and pulled out the small metal lockbox I had kept hidden for years. Inside were only a few important papers, old letters from my late husband, and some insurance information I rarely looked at. Until today. With shaking hands, I began to sort through the documents Daniel had helped organize for us months before. My eyes skimmed the pages until a familiar name stood out. A new insurance policy, in my daughter's name. The coverage amount made my stomach lurch. It was worth more than our house, more than my entire life's savings. I turned another page. Power of attorney forms partially filled out unsigned. Not by me. By her. By Emily. My chest tightened painfully around my heart. "What the hell?" I murmured to myself. That was when I noticed the edge of a notebook sticking halfway out from under the bed. I dropped to my knees slowly and pulled it into the light. It wasn't Emily's. It was written in a man's handwriting. Daniel's. My fingers flipped through page after page of dates, times, notes. Drug dosage increased, less resistance. Keeper dependent. Doctor payment scheduled. Mother is breaking down faster than expected. I slapped my hand over my mouth to stop from screaming. My breath came out in broken gasps. They weren't just taking advantage of me. They were keeping her in that chair. On purpose. Step by step. Page by page. One line made my blood run colder than anything else I read. As long as she believes Emily is fragile, she'll never leave the house. We control everything. A sudden weight seemed to press down on me. The wheelchair wasn't holding Emily. It was holding me. That's when I heard it. A soft creak in the hallway. A very slow drag of carpet. Then a footstep. Not the roll of a wheel. Not the shift of a chair. A foot. I froze. My heart stopped beating for one terrifying moment. Then the doorknob slowly began to turn. "Mama." Emily's voice floated in low and calm. "You weren't supposed to find that." I stared at the outline of her shadow under the door. The shadow of two legs. Standing. For a few seconds, the world outside my bedroom ceased to exist. There was only the shadow under the door. Two legs. Not weak, not trembling, but solid, upright. Exactly where they should not have been. "Mama," Emily repeated softly, her voice almost gentle. "You weren't supposed to find that." I couldn't move. My body refused to obey me. My hands were locked around Daniel's notebook, the evidence sharp in my fingers like broken glass. "Emily." My voice cracked so badly it barely resembled my own. What are you doing?" The doorknob turned and slowly the door creaked open. And she walked in. Not rolled. Not dragged. Walked. Slow, careful steps at first, as if she were worried that even now I might not believe my eyes. She wore the same sweater I had helped her into that morning, the same socks I had pulled over feet I believed could no longer support her weight. Now those feet pressed firmly into the carpet, carrying her toward me. "I'm sorry you had to see it like this," she said quietly, "but I was tired of pretending." Every memory from the last 6 years came rushing in like a violent storm. Her eyes staring at the ceiling, her claims of numbness, her whispered apologies for being a burden, the wheelchair, the medications, my aching arms from pushing her for miles. All of it a carefully written lie. "You lied," I breathed. A sob forced its way up my throat. "You let me do all of that for you. You watched me destroy myself for you." "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, and for a faint moment something like remorse flashed in her eyes. But once it started, it was easier to keep going than to stop. Started. My entire body shook with silent rage. "What do you mean, started?" "You remember the accident," she whispered. Of course I remember. It destroyed my life. No, she said, her gaze dropping to the floor. It changed it, but not the way you think. She took another step closer. I was hurt. Yes, my legs felt like fire. I couldn't move for days. And Dr. Hargrove, he told Daniel and me that I would probably recover fully with therapy, but he also said we could sue. We could get money. A lot of it. My head shook slowly in disbelief. You're lying. This has to be another lie. Her mouth twisted with pain this time. I swear to you, Mama. At first, I was just supposed to pretend a little longer, for the settlement, for the insurance. That's all it was meant to be. And then I whispered, sick with horror, yet desperate for the truth. Then Daniel got involved, she said bitterly. He found out about the second policy, the one Daddy left behind that you didn't even know existed, the one that activates with permanent disability. My blood ran cold. She gets a monthly payout, Daniel had once joked lightly. I had thought nothing of it at the time. That insurance is worth a fortune, Emily continued. More than both policies combined as long as I'm disabled. And Daniel, he convinced me that if I just stayed in the chair for a while longer, we could have everything we wanted. And what about me? My voice was barely a whisper now. What about your mother? You were supposed to go to assisted living, she admitted weakly. Daniel said we could make it happen quietly. Once I inherited the house, I'd put you somewhere nice, safe, comfortable. Her words shattered something deep inside me. So I became your nurse, your servant, your prisoner. I didn't think of it like that, she said hastily. Daniel made it sound practical, temporary. He said you'd be happier being taken care of too, that I would finally be able to live. By stealing my life, tears streamed down my wrinkled cheeks in silent rivers. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean to hurt you, Mama, but I was tired of being dependent, tired of being the broken girl everyone pitied. I just wanted control again. And how did that make you feel? I stepped back from her disgust, rising in every pore of my skin, watching me bathe you, clean you, cry for you at night. Something in her cracked at that. At first, it made me hate myself, she admitted, but over time it started to feel powerful. You needed me too, in your own way. Daniel said that was called leverage. Daniel. That name ignited something fierce in me. And the doctor, I asked. Dr. Hargrove, he was part of this too. She nodded slowly, shame heavy over her features. He got paid every month, false reports, adjusted scans, enough to keep the story alive, enough to keep the money flowing. My legs threatened to give out. I steadied myself on the edge of the bed. All this time, I choked. I blamed God for taking your future from you, and it was you who took it from yourself. And from you, her voice trembled. I see that now. Is that why you hid Daniel's notebook here? So I'd eventually forgive you once I found it. No? She shook her head. Daniel wanted me to keep it in a locked drawer. I hid it under the bed because part of me wanted you to find out. I was suffocating in the lie, Mama. From the corner of my eye, I saw my phone resting on the nightstand. My fingers slowly, silently moved toward it. I don't know who you are anymore, I whispered. The daughter I raised would never do such a thing. Tears welled up again in her eyes, but this time I felt nothing for them. I'm so sorry, she cried. I just wanted a life that felt normal. I just wanted to start over. You could have stood up. I snapped, my heart breaking into pieces with every word. You could have walked away. Instead, you made me your prison guard. Her sobs echoed in the small room. I messed up. No, I said, my voice low, hard. You committed a crime. My thumb tapped the screen. Dialing. Emergency services. As the line rang, Emily's eyes widened in raw panic. Mama, please don't. Daniel will go to jail, so will I. You already sent me to a different kind of prison, I replied. 6 years of it. The operator answered. Yes, I said, never taking my eyes off my daughter's broken face. I need the authorities at my address immediately. Outside the door, I heard the front entrance slam. Footsteps rushed across the living room. A voice calling out frantic now. Emily, is everything all right? Daniel. And suddenly, for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Daniel's footsteps thundered down the hallway like a drum announcing war. I didn't move. I didn't hide the phone. I didn't lower my eyes. I simply stood there between him and my daughter, the woman who had once been the little girl I tucked into bed at night, the same little girl I sang to when thunderstorms rattled the windows. Now she stood behind me, and it was no longer a wheelchair that separated us. It was truth. Daniel stopped in the doorway. His eyes moved instantly from me to Emily's legs, to the floor, to the bed, then back to her eyes. A flicker of fear burned bright in his. You walked," he said, his voice flat and disbelieving. "Yes, Daniel," Emily whispered. "I walked." He chuckled once, low and bitter. "Don't be dramatic. This doesn't change anything." "It changes everything," I said quietly. Daniel's gaze snapped to mine. The charm he always wore around other people vanished. What stared back at me now was cold and calculating, like the eyes of a stranger who had been living in my home. "You called someone?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "The authorities are on their way." His eyes widened just a bit, not in panic, but in evaluation, as though he were running through 10 possible escape routes in his mind. "Ma'am," he began in a gentler, manipulative tone, "you must be confused. You've been under a lot of stress. You imagine things. That notebook, it could have been written by anyone." I read every word I replied, and I recognized your handwriting. "Those were private thoughts," he snapped, suddenly anger slicing through his act. "Ideas, not actions." "You acted on them," I said steadily. "You drugged my daughter. You bribed a doctor. You trapped me in my own home." Emily began to shake behind me. "Stop," she cried suddenly. "It was my fault, too. Don't act like you controlled everything, Daniel. You enjoyed it. You enjoyed watching her break every day." Silence dropped hard into the room. Daniel stared at Emily as if she were someone else entirely. "You told her," he murmured. "She deserved to know the truth," she replied through sobs. "No, she wasn't supposed to know until it was over," he snapped. "Until when I demanded stepping forward. Until I died. Until you signed the house away. Until you buried me like inconvenient garbage." His jaw tightened. "It could have been peaceful for you," he muttered. That's when something inside me shattered completely, not into pain, but into clarity. "You used my love for my child," I said slowly, each word sharp as ice. "You turned it into a weapon. But love is also a shield, Daniel, and today it chose me." His eyes darted to the window as sirens began to rise in the distance. A faint red and blue glow flickered on the surrounding walls. Emily's breath caught. "They're here," she whispered. Daniel nodded once as if accepting the inevitable. Then he lunged. Not toward me. Not toward the door. Toward Emily. I reacted before I could think. My body moved on instinct, the same instinct that once chased cars down highways when my child crossed the street. I shoved him backward with a force fueled by 6 years of suppressed fear and heartbreak. He stumbled, crashing hard into the dresser. Glass shattered. A lamp fell. The sirens grew louder. Daniel got back to his feet, breathing heavily, his eyes wild now. "This ends today," he snarled. "Yes," I replied. "It does." Footsteps pounded up the front porch. Heavy knocks exploded against the door. Police opened the door. Daniel froze, realizing the game was over. Emily slid down against the wall, crying quietly into her hands as officers burst into the house. Within seconds, 2 of them were holding Daniel's arms behind him, pressing him to the floor. Another rushed to Emily. "Ma'am, are you injured?" "No, I can walk," she sobbed, almost in disbelief, even now. The officer exchanged a startled glance with another. "And you?" he asked me gently. I stood taller than I had in years. "I have never been more awake in my life." They read Daniel his rights as he spit furious denials, his voice echoing through the hallway that once held family photographs, laughter, and imagined safety. Outside neighbors gathered on their porches, whispering in shock as he was led away in handcuffs. The same man they had once waved to. The same man I trusted with my home? After the officers finished their initial report, one of them turned back to me. We believe your daughter has been a victim of medical abuse and coercion, ma'am. Social services and a medical review board will be involved. You did the right thing calling us. I looked at Emily, who sat with her knees tucked to her chest, looking utterly small again, despite finally standing. Now I whispered, walking toward her, kneeling in front of her, "We do the hardest part." Her eyes met mine. "What's that?" "We rebuild." A paramedic arrived to run tests, asking Emily to stand to step forward. 1 step, 2, 3. Each movement sent a ripple of awe through the hallway and into the quiet street outside. It was like watching a miracle unroll in real time. I can feel the floor. Emily whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. I can really feel it. "So can I answered softly, pressing my hand to my chest, for the first time in a very long time. The officer approached me once more before leaving. "Ma'am, we'll be in touch, but tonight, you and your daughter are safe." As the patrol cars pulled away and the sirens faded into silence, I realized something powerful. The worst 6 years of my life had just ended, and the first day of freedom had begun. Outside, the sky shifted to a soft gold, another sunset. But this time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something we'd both thought we'd lost forever. Hope. The house felt unbearably quiet after the police left. No rattling wheels, no forced smiles, no lies hiding in corners. Only the creak of the wooden floor beneath Emily's cautious steps and the slow, steady sound of her breathing. She stood in the middle of the living room, staring down at her own feet as though they were something she had never seen before. I forgot what standing felt like, she whispered. "For 6 years you weren't allowed to remember," I replied gently. The paramedics had left instructions for immediate physical therapy and full medical evaluations at the hospital the following morning. Emily had barely spoken after that. The shock, the guilt, the relief, all of it weighed on her small frame like an invisible storm. Now she slowly lowered herself onto the couch, not collapsing, not falling, but sitting. On her own. I knelt in front of her the same way I did when she was 5 years old and afraid of thunderstorms. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. I feel scared and free at the same time. "That's what truth feels like," I said. Outside, lights flicked on in neighbors' windows. I could feel curious eyes. People would talk. They always did. But that didn't matter anymore. They hadn't lived inside this nightmare with us. We were the ones who would have to heal. That night, neither of us slept much. Emily sat up on the couch, testing her legs, pressing them into the floor, stretching them carefully as if afraid they might disappear again. I sat in the armchair, wrapping my shaking hands around a cup of cold tea, watching her with a mix of pride, sorrow, and fierce love. "I don't know how to make up for what I did to you," she said quietly. "You don't," I answered, my voice calm but firm. "You don't make up for it. You live differently from now on. That's how." She wiped her eyes. "Do you hate me?" I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing myself to feel the full weight of the betrayal and the full weight of being her mother. "I hate what was done. I hate that you were used and that you allowed it. But I don't hate you, not even for a second. That's the curse and the blessing of being a mother." Emily broke down, then sobbing into my arms just as she had when she was a child. But this time she was standing in her truth. And so was I. The following weeks passed in a blur of hospital visits, physical therapy appointments, and police interviews. Daniel's name appeared in the local paper. The doctor who had falsified reports was arrested and lost his license. Investigators uncovered more victims, more lies, more people like us who had trusted the wrong hands. Emily started physical rehabilitation. Every painful stretch, every trembling step, every stumble. She fought for each movement with determination I had never seen in her before. "I'm not going to let 6 more years be taken from me," she said one day while forcing herself to climb the smallest set of stairs at the clinic. "You already stole my strength," once she muttered through tears. "You will not steal my future, too." Those words weren't just about Daniel. They were about the fear she once let control her, about the manipulation she once surrendered to, and about the woman she was becoming now. Strong, brave, awake. One afternoon, about 3 months after that terrible day, Emily stepped outside without her wheelchair for the first time. The sun warmed her face, the breeze lifted her hair. And for the first time in years, she walked down our front path, slowly, but truly. I stood at the door hands covering my mouth, heart bursting as each step carried her farther away from the prison she once lived inside. When she reached the end of the walkway, she turned back to me. "I'm walking again, Mama," she said. "Yes, baby," I whispered. "You are." Neighbors who once whispered now applauded. Strangers who heard our story sent letters of encouragement. But the greatest healing came in quiet moments. When we cooked together again. When she helped me in the garden. When we laughed at old movies on the couch. Moments that should have never been stolen. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset bleed orange across the sky, Emily spoke softly. "Do you ever wish you could go back in time and change everything?" I thought about those 6 lost years. Then I shook my head. "No," I said thoughtfully, "because if I had gone back, I wouldn't have known how strong you really were, and I wouldn't have known how strong I was either." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Then maybe our suffering had a purpose." Maybe I replied, or maybe it just taught us to never let anyone steal our truth ever again. Silence fell between us. A peaceful silence. The kind that felt like healing instead of fear. That night, before I went inside, I looked out at the road we once rolled down in a wheelchair. And I smiled. Because we didn't need it anymore. Not now, not ever again. If this story moved you, if it made your heart beat faster or opened your eyes even just a little, I invite you to share it. Leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And if you'd like to hear more stories of resilience, truth, and survival stories just like mine, don't forget to subscribe. Because you never know. The next story we tell might just be the one that changes everything for you.